Good morning. It's Friday here. We're down to Berkey this morning, picking up some boxes, getting our tender trailer, and we found out this morning they're starting to work on our bins, putting a roof together, the first one today. So we're helping them lay out where we want ladders and manholes and doors and unloads and all of the things. But they need their first ring sheets put on the concrete pad, and there's mud all around it. They can't get close enough with their forklift, so I'll use the loader tractor here and set their stuff on there for them. There's not much to see out there right now. They're just getting vents and roof sheets and stuff put on. The other reason we're here is I'm going to collect all of my empty boxes. So we got to get the doors opened up here so we can get them out of here. I brought the trailer down. We might do a little backfilling around our concrete while we're down here too. So we've got the bucket for our tractor right there, but we got to move this tender out of the way. So I got the bucket put on here. And we're going to do a little backfilling around our pads. I put some small stones on this side. We've got a ramp built up so that I can get up on top of it. And we got to fill in between them. So I got some bigger stones, some 4s. We're going to just try and layer in the bottom around the footer, and then we'll put some of the smaller stuff on. It should be good driving up here. All right, we're going to replenish our mini bucket supply here, it looks like, so that's good. We got some roof sheets together. They're going to put the first ring in the roof together here today, it sounds like, and then it's a holiday weekend, so it'll probably sit there for a while. But yeah, Phil's going to stick around here. We were doing some grading between the pads there. Obviously, we've got a bunch of dirt and stuff out here, but we don't really want the stone out here too awful bad, so we'll take care of this stuff later. It's the stuff we can't get to later that needed to be done now. I'm going to go strap my boxes on my trailer, go pick up some from a neighbor, and head back. Well, there. Had 12 boxes here. We got a neighbor right across the section that's got, he's got 9, but he said 2 of them still have beans in it, so we can go pick up 7 more boxes since we're here. Thought I'd better look at the beans, see if the beans are coming up yet. Ah, right. There's a bean. They're coming. Just starting to. It's so cold. Things are growing really, really slowly right now. There we got one. Right there's a neck. Good deal. They were planted a week ago today. It was a Friday last week, and today is Friday. So they started off growing really fast, and then we've gotten really cold, and things just slow down. So it's plenty wet here too. We've had about 9/10 of an inch of rain over the last few days. But it looks like it's going to start drying up a little bit anyway. On and off sun today, which is helpful, but still cold. Not going to be really warm. I don't think we see 70 until the end of next week, like a whole week ago from now. Well, I made it back, and we are getting our empties unloaded here. We're getting a pile of them. Count how many empties we got when I get done with unloading these, and see, we might need to get a truck lined up soon. All right, we've got 3 rows here, or 6 deep and 4 high, except for that one. I've got another row there that's 6 deep and 4 high. So say that's 4. 6 times 4 is 24 times 4. That's almost 100. I mean, 96 minus 2 is 94, but there's 2. So 96 plus 8 is 104. So I got 104 empties in here right now, and I've got a bunch down at the farm yet. I could load 2 full trucks. Probably could get 3 pretty easily. I think you can get 42 on a truck. Brock came while I was down to Berkey there. He's cleaning up our tank. Got it cleaned up pretty nice. It looks pretty good. He got a little bit of whatever was in the hoses drained out, half a bucket over there or something, but he was trying to run the fuel treatment through the pump here and broke my cord. He broke it. That's what he does. He just comes here and breaks all my stuff. Where'd he go? He can't even hear me. It's no fun picking on him if he can't even hear me. So anyway, what do we do? We'll get it fixed up. We'll see if Brock's good enough to get this in here. Oh geez. There you go. You're not square. All right, well, that's good. Good deal. Get that one put away. Start cleaning for the year. We could start working on the planter. Probably not going to start working on the planter because there's a chance we could start side dressing sometime this weekend, maybe. So we need to do our alignment on that track on the tractor, and we'll talk about that some more here after I go get something to eat because I'm hungry. It's lunchtime and I haven't eaten, so I'm gonna go do that and we'll come back. Brock's gonna get our ATV or our gator sprayer out, put that in so we can start spraying some weeds around. Just odds and ends stuff today. Look at him, taking advantage of the farm's power washer and electricity and soap. Look at him.
I'm just too efficient of a worker.
Killing time,
Everything else done that you told me to do.
He had nothing to do and wash his truck. What's that big dent on the side from, Brock?
I bought it like that. She's pretty, isn't she?
Make sure you get the armor shield out. Careful, you'll break your leaf springs. All right. A number of years ago, we built this homemade sprayer for the back of our gator here, and it works pretty well. We got a 60-gallon tank. It's got an electric pump here that works really well, but we had a valve on here that controlled the boom on and off, a solenoid valve, and it broke last year, so now the boom doesn't work. So we kind of went to just using it with the hand wand, which is fine, but kind of want to make it work again. So I had Brock get that put in there so that we can figure out what we need to do and parts we need to get and all of that kind of stuff for that. But we need to do our track alignment procedures on here. So, okay, let's talk. Let's talk for a minute here, guys. We put this new track on a couple days ago, right? You guys watched that. And most of you, well, some of you were nice, some of you were not. Anyway, the track's on. Is it on? Brock, did we get this track on? We got it on. YouTube doesn't think we can do it. They watched and told me how we did it wrong. But we got it on, and it only took us like an hour and a half, which I didn't think was bad for the first time we've ever changed a track before, right? Yeah. Okay. Apparently, the biggest thing that we didn't do, or we did wrong, was we had it too high in the air, and it was too much slack on the bottom.
We let it down.
We let it down as we went. And do you remember why we couldn't let it down all the way?
Because the guide lugs inside the bogies.
What do they have to do?
They have to slip underneath.
They have to clear the bogies. You see these big lugs here, guys? These big ones? You have to clear these. That had to hang down low enough until we got it into the middle. And so we let it down as we could. And I don't know if you remember in that video, there was a point where we had a giant block laying against here and we were hitting with a sledgehammer. We were trying to get those lugs in between the bogies so we could let it down farther so I could take the slack out of it to get it around the front here. I knew that. I don't know why putting a block under it would have done anything, which is what most of you have said to do. That doesn't seem like it would have done anything because you still have to get the guide lugs in between the bogie wheels. Once we got to that point, it went pretty easily. That was what ended up happening, and what our biggest holdup was that it took us the longest was one of these guide lugs up here wasn't quite down into the lugs on the drive wheel, or the slots on the drive wheel, and this was pushed out up here. Once I kind of caught that, or Jack really, he's the one that pointed it out, and we pounded the track over enough to get that to go down, then we had enough slack to get it around the front idlers, get it in between the bogies so we could put some weight off and get our idler put back on. It was not that we didn't have it down far enough and couldn't get it in there. The other thing, a lot of people said to use some soapy water or something. I did end up spraying some Windex on it when we got to that point, just to give it a little bit of lubrication. The problem was not rubber sliding on other rubber or steel or anything. It was getting the guide lugs past this hub. That's what took us the longest. We didn't have enough slack to get the guide lugs to go around this hub in here. So once we figured that out, we were in good shape, right?
It wasn't too bad. It it really
was not that bad. We did
It was gonna
fine.
take a little bit of time, but an hour and a half.
This was much easier for me, than changing the sprayer tire. It was much easier. And if I had to do it again, I could probably do it in half as much time because I know how to do it now. It was the first time we'd ever done it, right? You learn. Okay, anyway, we need to do an alignment on this. So we're going to take it out and we're going to get the book out and we're going to read all the procedures and stuff. Basically, you drive it straight for a while and you make sure that you can fit a shim in on each side of the guide lugs between that and the bogies and stuff, and that it's not tracking completely to one side. I don't expect it to be bad. I expect it to be where it should be because we had the last track aligned. So unless something has changed, which it can't really, this shouldn't be that hard. But basically, there's a bolt right here that you turn to kind of changes the angle of these front idlers, and it makes that track where you want it. Make sense? Makes sense. All right, so in reading about this in the book a little bit, just trying to figure out exactly what this procedure was again. You got to drive 150 feet and then check the shim, put a shim in, which I have. Somewhere down here there's a shim. And check your alignment, but you gotta be on a flat surface. The road is not good enough because of the crown in the road and stuff, and essentially you just want to make sure that the track is somewhat centered. Now, it does say to do this after the initial break-in period, so it really says, you know, you don't need to do this when you put a new track on. You need to do it after you notice something off, meaning wear on one side of the guide lugs or the other, or extreme temperature differential after use, or something like that. And so we're not really in the best situation to do this alignment, but we're going to drive 150 feet down this straight lane here and see if it's reasonably close. If it is, then we are not going to do anything about it right now. If it's way off, then we'll have to address it, but I don't think we're going to see that. It says to drive, hit it in neutral, and let it coast to a stop with no steering or braking input. We did that. Now we'll grab my shim, which is wrapped up in this paper towel. This isn't quite big enough, or what they specified, but it's the correct thickness. 3/16 of an inch. So now we take this and we attempt to slide it in here. And you can see it goes all the way through between those bogies. It is tight there, though. Check both sides, front and back. It does slide in there. Oh, maybe we're just hitting a lug. Yeah, it's a little tight there. Check the inside. Plenty of room there, and I'm guessing up here. Okay. So, given that, we're a little bit close on this front one. So we may have to tweak this just a little bit. It's not super tight, really bad though. So I think we might run it and check it after the first, hour or two, and then we can put a temperature gun on our guide lugs and see is one side hotter than the other, and that'll tell us whether we're aligned or not. Let's just look at the other side while we're here. It is time to get the Anhydrous applicator hooked up. So first thing we have to do is take this quick coupler off. We gotta pull this pin, but we're not supported right here. We got it. We got it off. All right, now let's go see what we got to move out of the way over here. Oh, it's dripping. Brock washed this, which was nice of him, but now it's dripping on me. All right, so here's our Anhydrous applicator. This is a 2510H Deere. Works really good. We went through it this winter, so should be all ready to go. Just gotta get it hooked up. Brock's getting the mean planter out of the way. This is a pain in the butt to hook up because you got to go get these pins lined up perfectly. It's not real fun, but we'll get it. All right, well, we got to get these pins in. It can be extremely difficult to get them lined up. This actually wasn't so bad. We gotta nudge the tractor ahead just a little bit. Brock's gonna do that while I tap on this. Open the window. Are you using just over and forward, not pulling the trigger? Alright, we got it. Put our pin in. Lift it up. Wait, no, you don't lift it up. I'll do it. Alright. Fold the jacks up, get our hydraulics hooked up so we can pick up those row units and we'll pull it out of here. It appears we have a flat tire, which is exactly what I parked it here for, pumping up the tires. Did you get that in and not hit anything? Nice job, Brock. I did not know we had a flat, but I figured we better check the tires. Getting stuff ready to do anhydrous, so time to put new filter cartridges on my respirator here. I like this fancy, thanks Brock, full-faced one for, it goes on there. It's supposed to end up like that. Oh, okay, yeah. Alright, I like to put new ones on every year. I don't know how often you're supposed to do it, but I put new ones on every year. What's that say? 1 of 24. That was last year's. These are, the green is for ammonia, and the pink is dust. 11 of 24. Maybe we'll just open it. And I got a good pair of rubber gloves. Anhydrous is a really good fertilizer. It's 82% nitrogen. It's a good form of nitrogen available to the plants as soon as it's attached to some moisture in the soil. We'll talk about other things with anhydrous in the future, I am sure, but it is a little bit of a hazard to apply. It is an inhalation hazard. Essentially, it displaces oxygen from your lungs if you breathe it in, and it can burn and stuff. So we make sure we take the proper safety precautions. We do not have any fields dry enough to put anhydrous on today, not even close. But I do want to get a couple of tanks around to be able to pressure test stuff, close all our bleeder valves. And then if by chance we can do something this weekend, it's a holiday weekend, everybody's going to be closed. And so if I got a couple of tanks, we could at least get a start, do something. Is that it? Is it just one on here? Thought we had more bleeder valves than that, but I don't see any. So, like I said, we did a lot of work to this bar over the winter once we got it back from winter storage at Berkey. Put new not blades, everything but blades, basically. We put boots and beaver tails on. We redid bushings inside of these pivots for the closing wheels. So that's all tight and good. And yeah, should be in pretty good shape. Got a lot of ground to cover, so we'll get her ready to go here. Well, we got a tank, a nice one too. Our new supplier that we started using a year ago because our old supplier closed and quit doing anhydrous. The new supplier made some investments. They bought some really nice tanks. They have a good setup. They supply us well. They've done a good job. They're a little farther away than we had to go before, but that's all right. So, ooh, pressure behind that. There's not supposed to be pressure behind that. That was closed. I should have my gloves on. I don't. Anyway, the one difference is all of their tanks have the small fitting, and our applicator has the big coupler. So we have to put this adapter on here. Not a big deal. Probably when it's time to replace the coupler on here, we should put a small one on. So we don't have to do that anymore, but it works for now. Anyway, there's that. I am not going to open the valves up. I don't need to run anything through there for right now. We'll do that when it's time to go. It is not time to go. The fields are too wet. But we are getting some tanks around. We got that one. Brock should have another one sitting there, and he's on his way to get a third one. They had a fourth one weighed out for us, or I think they did anyway. I guess I'm not sure. They had it designated for us. Anyway, I'm thinking that maybe Sunday or Monday we'll be able to run, and since it's a holiday weekend, I want to have some stuff around. Hey, have you guys subscribed yet? Make sure you're subscribed to the channel. I appreciate you. Feel free to leave any comments you got. Tell me how dumb I am. Whatever, it's fine. Like the video, all those good things. If you haven't been over to Farm Focused and grab yourself some Border View Farms merchandise, we do have some shirts and hoodies, and I wish it wasn't still hoodie season at the end of May, but it is what it is. And if you need one, head on over to Farm Focus and grab one. All right, before we wrap this video up, I have another thing we want to talk about. It's regarding the tracks on the 8RX, right? So we've gone through this whole, we've got to road it and stuff, and I know that's not good for it, but it's, the tractors have to be able to do that, right? Like, it is not unreasonable for me to expect a tractor to be able to drive 35 miles down the road. Like, I know that's a little bit of an extreme situation, but we are not the only ones that do that by any means. And I take care of it and stuff. So after all of that happened last week, the question then becomes are the tracks worth it? Like, do we need a track tractor? Are we getting any benefit out of a tracked tractor? Is there a reason for us to have that, or should we think about getting rid of that, going back to tires? And that's a valid, I said to Dad a few hours after this happened, I said, well, let's trade it and the 8R in and get 2 new 410Rs. Like, we can, on tires. That tractor's still worth a lot of money, right? That 8RX, even with 1,200 hours on it, is worth probably pretty close to what we paid for it. So it wouldn't cost us a whole lot to get out of it if we wanted to. But are the tracks worth it? Well, it is really hard for me to give you a good comparison and a good, tires versus tracks type of thing. I can pull the ground pressure data. Let me find that sheet here real quick, and I'll tell you the difference in how much ground pressure we're putting on tires versus tracks. All right, so I have a document here that talks about the contact area and the amount of pressure, ground pressure that different tractors and tire and wheel and track configurations put on our soil. And so we're going to go over some rough numbers here, and then we'll kind of talk about what they mean. 8RX tractors with 18-inch tracks. So the ground pressure range, and we're going to talk in PSI because that's what I understand, depending on your minimum or your maximum ballast, is between 8.8 and 9.5 PSI. Okay, now that's pretty reasonable. Footprint in square feet, 32.3 square feet. So that's how much track is on the ground at all times on that tractor. Now, let's go up to an 8R, and this is with IF 420 85R34 front duals and IF 480 80R50 rear duals. Now, those are the same size tires that are on our 8R, on our 8335R, but we have the regular ones, not the IF. IF is increased flexion. You can have lower ground pressure, gives you a bigger, or lower air pressure, which gives you a bigger contact patch, okay? 9.8 to 15.5 PSI. So if you have any weights on there at all, you're well over 10. If you're maximum ballast, you're up towards 15 PSI versus our 8 to 9.5. So it's not double, but it's getting close, right? Square feet on the ground, 19.8 square feet versus 32.3. That's the difference right there, is that the tracks give you a much bigger footprint. And what that doesn't tell you is that everything is in one line, in one row, with the tracks versus being 2 rows side by side with tires. So now there's some more information in here. We can compare. Let's find the 8R versus 8RX. So right here. So this is what I'm talking about. See how everything is in 2 lines with an 8RX versus an 8R, you have 4 lines because you have duals. You're spreading out your footprint in a much larger area. Okay. So an 8RX with 18-inch tracks has a 39% larger footprint than an 8R, and it averages 54% lower ground pressure. That's why we run those tracks. Okay, now what does that mean in practical terms? Yeah, that's all on there. What does that mean? Well, a few years ago, when I was still planting corn with our 8R, my 8335R with front duals, duals all the way around, and our 16-row planter, I did a pinch row compaction study. You guys remember this? And so what I did was, when we got to harvest, I harvested the outside rows of the planter, so rows 1 and 16, And then I harvested rows 2 and 15. And I worked my way all the way into the center of that planter. And we weighed each one of those individually, or each pair of rows based on where they were at on the planter, and tried to determine where the rows were next to tires or no tires or planter tires or on the end or in the middle of the duals, how much variation there was, and was that costing me yield, and how much was that pinch row effect, right? I don't know. Let me go back to this picture. So see what I mean about, actually, here, let me do a better visual. So I'm not getting this out of the box because I'm not getting it out of the box. But see how under the tracks, we have a row on this side and a row on this side, but there's 4 that go between the tracks underneath the tractor, right? Well, with the tired version, you've got a row that goes, you got 2 rows that go underneath the tractor. You've got 1 row that goes between the tires, and then you'll have 1 right on the outside edge of it, okay? So we've essentially here got 1 row that has compaction from the tractor on both sides of it, and then we have 2 rows that have compaction from the tractor on one side of it. Where with the 8RX, we only have those 2 rows with compaction on one side of it. We don't have that row that has compaction on both sides of it. That's what tracks eliminate for us. So how much does that matter? Well, when I did this pinch row compaction study, here are the results. Let's look at them. So rows 1 and 16 averaged in this particular year 223, we're going to call that. Now, 223 was good, but I think that there was something else going on here that caused this to be a little bit lower than some of the other ones. So let's keep going. 2 and 15. Okay, we jumped up to 250. Whoa, that's a big jump, right? 3 and 14, 251. Well, that's pretty similar. Now, these rows don't have tractor tires. They do have planter tires next to them, but not tractor tires. Rows 4 and 13, no tires at all, 245. Rows 5 and 12, 259. Now, there's some variation there, but that's all fairly consistent and not major differences except for rows 1 and 16. We'll come back to that later. Now, rows 6 and 11 are going to be your 2 that have that were on the outside of the dual tires. So they had 1 row of compaction, or one side of them had a tire track in it. We dropped all the way down to 217, okay? That's significant. Now, you'll remember that with my planter, we're pulling the tank. That tank follows the outside duals. So not only do we have the outside duals from the tractor, front and rear, we have a tire from the planter. We also have that big heavy tank that I am pulling, okay? So that's there. Now, rows 7 and 10, look at that number, 188. So now we've dropped off even more, another 20 bushel from the one that only had 1 row. 7 and 10 are the rows that go between the tires, between the duals, and they have the most compaction, both sides of that row. And then 8 and 9 are the 2 rows that go underneath the tractor. We jumped way back up to 250. Now, what happened there? Well, we got compaction on one side of the row, so what's the deal? Well, yes, but we don't have that tank. We don't have all that weight from the tank that I was pulling behind it, and so while there is still compaction there, it's much less. So, essentially, what going to tracks does is it eliminates the row 7 and 10, right? We're still going to have the rows on each side of the tracks, although less compaction because we're a lower ground pressure, at 50% lower ground pressure. But we go from having 3 rows per side, or 6 rows of the planter pass that are affected, to 4 rows of the planter that are affected. And the worst one is the one that we eliminate. And if you kind of just average these other ones, even, you know, we're 250, 245, 259. Even if you said that was a 250 average and you drop down to 188, that's over 60 bushel drop on those 2 rows. A 60 bushel drop is significant. And when this was, let me grab my calculator. When this was a 60 bushel drop on an 8-row planter, we're going to use some round numbers here, not my actual numbers, but on a 16-row planter, you're doing this to 2 out of 16 rows. That's 1/8 of your acres. For easy math, let's say you plant 1,600 acres of corn. We don't have quite that much, but let's just say that. That means on 1/8 of your acres is 200 acres. 200 acres that you're reducing your yield by 60 bushel to the acre. And if you move to tracks, you completely eliminate that row getting the yield reduced on. So 200
times 60 bushel yield reduction is 12,000 bushels of corn per year that we are losing running dual tires instead of tracks. Okay, that still has the yield reduction on the rows next to the tracks. That's still figured in because those are the other rows that are getting reduced yield from the study here. But we're eliminating that pinch row. 12,000 bushels times, let's just say $4. I don't know what the price of corn is today. That's $48,000 a year. I can pay for the tracks. They're worth it. I hate it. I hate how expensive they are. But I can afford to pay for the tracks. They're worth it. Those are the numbers that we use to justify the tractor to start with. And I get this is a one-year study that was done one time, and I really should do this again with the tractor now to see how much of a difference that made. But there's no arguing that we don't have a pinch row anymore. Like you can't say that we didn't eliminate that. You can say that the row next to that tank is still going to have some yield reduction, and we probably didn't gain 60 bushel on that. That's true. That's probably true. But even if you take half of this, even if we gain half of this yield reduction back, you're still at $24,000 a year. I can still pay for the tracks. Okay. So now there is another factor that has changed since I did this study. That was a 16-row planter. Part of the justification of going from 16 to 24, even though we went from a slow planter to a high speed and probably didn't need to go to 24, was now instead of 1/8 of your acres that your pinch row compaction or your tire tracks are affecting, it's 1/12 of your acres, right? Because it's 1 out of 12 rows, not 1 out of 6 or 1 out of 8 or 2 out of 16 versus 2 out of 24. So that makes even less compaction and helps bring our yields up. I have no doubt whatsoever that our corn has yielded more the last 3 years because I'm planting with a tractor, and even more the last 2 years because we went to a 24-row planter over a 16-row planter. No doubt in my mind. It's hard to quantify that because I didn't plant some with a 16-row planter with tires next to a 24-row with tracks. Like I didn't do that, so I don't have that, hard data from a single year or side by side. But you can't. I don't have the ability to get that information, and so using the data that I have available to me, those are the numbers that justify why we can afford tracks. As cool as the 8RX is, and I want to just tell you that I bought it because it's cool and it looks good on YouTube and I want to show off, we had actual hard data behind it. That has nothing to do with why we bought it. An 8RT, that one document does have the information between an 8RX and an 8RT. 8RT is a much bigger improvement is a marked improvement over tires. It's not quite as good as 8RX. But it would do the same thing. It eliminates that pinch row because everything's in one row and are in 2 lines instead of having that pinch row. So that's why I don't have any problem with 8RTs or 2-track machines. Like I've never run one. I don't know anything on that side of it. But I think they would accomplish the same thing and work really well.
All right, in order to make this video longer than absolutely necessary, we're going to go look at some crops. I'm across the road. I'll show you something in a second here, but let's see how our corn's doing. It's a little yellow. I'm not going to lie, it's a little yellow. But the stand looks really good, and everybody's corn around here looks yellow. I think it's the cool weather that's doing this, but let's take a look. So here's our first leaf. You can tell it's the first leaf because it's the bottom one, but later you can tell it's the first leaf because it's got a rounded tip. Second leaves are pointed. First leaves are rounded on all of them. Yeah, that one's sort of pointed, but it's more round than the other one. So that's how we know it's the bottom leaf later in the growing season. But so we've got 1, 2. We have a second leaf with a leaf collar. Our third leaf here does not have a leaf collar. That means this is V2 corn. And it looks pretty decent. Right now, the growing point is still below ground. We could survive a frost if we had to, but we don't need to. And it's still largely getting its energy from the seed, although we have started taking up starter fertilizer and obviously water and other nutrients from the soil, but still getting its energy out of the starch reserves that are in that seed that we planted. So for the most part, it looks pretty good. We just need some warm weather to get it to green up. There goes Brock. Now, when we were driving by a little bit ago getting a anhydrous tank, I noticed that over here I have 3 rows that seem to be missing. I don't know why they're missing, but they're missing. It's possible I was running out of seed because it kind of tapers off and looks like that. It's also possible I pushed a button in the monitor that I shouldn't have, but either way, they're missing them. So, we've got the old 1-row push planter out, and we're going to patch them in. Our singulation and spacing is terrible. Our depth control is garbage, but it'll grow. It's going to look better than not having it there at all. So, we're planting corn, and I'm doing it while it's a little wet, because if I wait till it's dry, we will never be able to get this thing in the ground. All right, we got it in. I told Brock I was going to do this, and he thought I was joking. So I had to do it myself. The manual down pressure wasn't working so good, so a few seeds laying on the surface. We're trying to bury them. Oh, man. Manual down pressure is worse than spring down pressure, in case you were wondering. Now, this field, same one we were just in, I just moved down a little bit. This is the field where I'm doing my high management versus standard practice plot. Remember that? I talked about it a little bit. We've done this in the past. And one of the things that I did different at planting was turn the starter off. Because standard practice, low management, you don't use starter fertilizer, right? I'm not saying if you don't use starter fertilizer, you're low management. I'm saying that if you are low management, you probably don't use starter fertilizer either. I am standing on the split row. You want to know how I know it's the split row? Same reason I know that the corn is starting to take up starter fertilizer. Yeah, can you see it? Can you see how dark green this row is compared to that row? I would say starter fertilizer does something for us. Absolutely. There is a massive color difference. And I think all of our corn looks yellow, even this stuff, but holy crap, does this stuff look terrible. So I'm going to go walk to the other end of this plot, see if I can see the other side of it. But yeah, it should be, I don't know what I had here. 4 or 5 planter passes, 6 maybe. Right there's the other split. So now it's green over here and yellow over there. That's significant. That is, wow. Okay, well, this will be interesting to track throughout the year. I need to get some flags and put it here so that when we're spraying stuff, we can make sure that we're segregating this area out, because I don't want to put any V5 fungicide on. I don't want to put any tassel fungicide on. All of that kind of stuff is going to stay different right here. So, yeah. But stand looks good. Everything else looks okay here. We need to go find a bean field to look at. Here's some soybeans. We found one. This is the first field of soybeans, ones I did in 30-inch rows with the corn planter that first day we were planting stuff. They look really good. They've come up nice. Get a good stand. They're beautiful. But I want to look with the weather that we are having right now. Cool, moist, cloudy is perfect for slugs. And I'm hearing some awful slug damage reports from around, mostly in high cover fields, meaning fields with cover crops and such. But we do have corn stalk residue here, so I just kind of wanted to look and see if we see any slug damage. I don't, but what is this brown stuff, or discolored leaves? I'm not sure on that. Doesn't look great. But the beans are growing. They look fine. I don't see any slug damage, really. A couple holes, maybe some bean beetles or something. Nothing significant. We've got our first set of trifoliates coming out. That's this 3 leaves next to each other here. We've got our 2 unifoliates and then the trifoliates. So overall, they look really good. I don't see any slug damage here. Good. Well, looking around a little bit, we're still in pretty decent shape. I think the early planted crops all look good, and we just need some sunshine and some heat, and we aren't getting it. So tomorrow's supposed to be sunny at least, but still like 60, 62 for a high is all. So not great for the end of May, but nothing we can do about that one, is there? So anyway, thanks for watching. Have a great night. Have a great Memorial Day weekend, everybody. Probably just doing a little bit of stuff tomorrow. Not really. Dad might spray the weed. I might help him, but probably not enough to actually make a video. So we'll probably see you guys on Monday. There's a chance we get started side dressing on Sunday. We'll see. But I'll film it for you when we do. So thanks for watching. Have a great weekend, and we'll talk to you next week.